I went and did it again, you guys. I swore I was done with the disgusting smoky dressers, but somehow I ended up with 2 more. You are not going to believe this transformation. I barely believe it, and I did it. Stay tuned. My name is Angie, and I'm the one behind Transcend Furniture Gallery, a business created from the love of vintage furniture and the desire to take broken, dated, and unloved things and turn them into modern treasures. Sometimes I paint, and sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. Okay, so while I'm getting ready to prep this, let me tell you about how I ended up with this pair of disgusting mid-century-esque dresser set, probably from the 70s. I saw these on Marketplace. I wrote the lady right away because I had a feeling about these. I could just picture what they could be, but I was so disappointed to get there and walk in the house and it just smelled so terrible. I was actually going to tell her no. You can actually see the top of the dresser falling off in my hands here. But before I could decline the sale, she actually said to me, she said, "I'm so relieved. My husband just passed away a couple of months ago and I can't bear to look at these anymore." Yeah. So what was I gonna do? I loaded them in the car and drove all the way home with the windows down, kicking myself, but I would have felt terrible if I had told her no after she said that. I couldn't do it. So instead of walking away, I spent 2.5 hours outside cleaning these. I got a sunburn and everything, but this Zibra Degreaser is fantastic for getting rid of that caked on nicotine and just grime and dirt. These were absolutely filthy. They were probably the grossest pieces I've had in quite a while. And if you saw some of my most recent videos, that's really saying something because those were pretty bad too. I was a bit torn about this hardware. I initially had planned on spray painting it, but once I scrubbed all the grime off, there was a little bit of patina, but they were actually in really good shape. So I think I'm gonna leave them as is. And a great before and after shot of these filthy legs. Like, that is so gross, you guys. You've seen me use this before. This is a great odor blocking primer. It goes on white but dries completely clear. I am covering every square inch of this piece with this primer. It looks pretty crazy here, but it does dry completely clear, don't worry. You can actually see on the right there, it's already started to dry. I'm reattaching the laminate top with some Weld Bond. It's a great glue for stuff that's not wood. I use it a fair bit, especially for this situation. So it goes on a little bit like contact cement. You have to apply the glue to both surfaces and press them together. It's not as fast as contact cement, like when you lay contact cement down. You can't usually move it, it just immediately bonds. This one you have a little bit more working time. So I'm just kind of making sure I get it all lined up, and then I'm going to clamp it all down and let it dry for the rest of the day. You can never have too many clamps. Just gonna put that out there. I'm using a 100 grit sanding pad to clean off these legs now. This is that same sort of weird printed plasticky paper product that they put over raw wood back in the 60s and 70s. I don't know why they did that. I much prefer the look of the raw wood, even if it's inconsistent and kind of random, but that's what wood is. Like, I don't get these products that try to make wood look absolutely perfect, because me, that's not how wood is at all. Almost every one of these drawers had to be reattached in some place and glued and clamped. It took a little while to get all that done, but everything's strong and bonded again and good to go. I'm only adding a very tiny amount of glue to the dovetail part, and it's actually just inside. It's not actually on the tails themselves. This is just, it'll hold it in place, but it won't make it impossible to take apart later on if there has to be other repairs done. I've seen some pretty bad repairs over the years where people will glue the heck out of a dovetail joint and there's no way to get it apart. Or they'll drive nails down through the middle. That drives me crazy. I don't know why people do that. Stop nailing stuff. So I know on first glance this dresser, or these dressers, look like really cheap laminate pieces, but they actually have solid wood frames, solid wood legs, and the drawers are completely solid wood as well. So to me, these are sort of my ideal project pieces because the part that is laminate, like the sides and the top, you can just paint to kind of give it an update, and the rest you can actually leave wood if you want to. I like leaving as much wood as possible where I can. Because I am going to be painting these tops, I'm just giving this a very as uniform as possible scuff coat with, I think I'm using a 150 grit. All I'm trying to do is knock down the majority of the shiny parts. Now, if this top was wood, I would absolutely prime it because I would be concerned about some of that residual nicotine or bleed through, but because these tops are not overly porous and I have already scrubbed the heck out of it and cleaned them really, really well, I'm not at all worried about that. When in doubt, always prime. I'm quite confident in this being very clean and properly prepped, so I'm just going to go ahead and patch my holes and then I'll be painting it. Sometimes I use Bondo to fill holes, sometimes I use this filler. I like this one because it goes on pink and dries white, so there's never any confusion about whether or not it's dry. If it's white, you're good to go. And this is probably my favorite part of the whole project, doing this whitewash. So I'm using Fusion Mineral Paint. The color is Casement and it's a 50-50 water to paint ratio. So I just have them mixed in a spare jar. You brush it on, you don't want to let it dry. Brush it on and pretty much immediately wipe it off. One thing to consider when you're whitewashing is that it will sometimes raise the grain of certain woods, and you can kind of tell when you rub your hand over it if suddenly it feels rough where it was smooth before you did it. If that happens, just grab a fine sandpaper and just, without a lot of pressure, just knock that down a bit. You'll see me do that here in a couple of minutes. It doesn't actually hurt the whitewash if you do it lightly. This is one of my custom mix colors from my color mixing video. If you're interested in making this color for yourself, I'll put a link in the description box below. Speaking of the description box, if there's ever any products that I'm using that you're interested in, I do try to link as much as possible in the descriptions of the videos, so always check those out. This looks fairly light here, and it does go on a little bit lighter than it dries, but most of this is just the lighting. It's actually a very pretty sage green with a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit lighter than Sacred Sage because Sacred Sage is one of the ingredients, but there's a little bit of gray in it, and it's just a nice tweak on an already great color. It's just kind of my own version of it. I'm choosing to brush, but you could also use a roller here. So this is what I was talking about earlier about knocking back some of that raised wood grain. I'm not using pretty much any downward pressure, I'm just dragging my hand back and forth, and that's all it takes. I'm sealing these drawers with 3 coats of water-based Minwax Polycrylic. It's really easy to put on, you just don't want to overwork it, so I usually just apply it and then drag it all to make it smooth as quickly as possible. If you wait too long or you go back and forth too many times, you'll just mess up your finish. So get in, get out, basically. I'm pretty much in the home stretch now, just reattaching the legs and doing a few last minute things to the drawers. There were a few of these plastic sliders that were broken, so I'm just replacing them very quickly. I always keep these on hand. I go through so many of them. Definitely want to keep them around if you're into redoing furniture. As is becoming tradition, I just want to take a few minutes to say huge thank you to all of these awesome folks who have sent me teas over the last couple of weeks. It's just a really fun way to help support the channel. You could do anything from $5 to, well, basically unlimited, but every little bit helps. While I do occasionally buy a tea, what I normally use this money for is supplies and just stuff to help keep the business and the channel going, and I appreciate it so much, so thank you. If you're new to this channel and you're just seeing this for the first time, I'll drop a link down below if you want to check out what this is all about. Final step now before the big reveal, I'm using this Wise Owl furniture salve to help seal the drawers. Just nourishes the wood, protects them, seals them, and leaves a nice light scent. Hold on to your hats. Let's have a look at these pieces. If I hadn't done this myself, I would never believe it.